Today we're going to look at finding a rate of change and starting point from specific bank problems. And our focus is going to be on talking about saving money versus spending money and what the function rules and the rates look like in those different situations. We're also going to take a look at finding missing numbers in ordered pairs if we already know the rate of change. Then we'll work on a little bit of review, kind of pulling all of the pieces of the puzzle together. In this first problem it says, Shauna earns $10 a week for helping out at her grandmother's apartment complex. We're going to fill in the table and plot our points on the graph below. First, I'll do week 1 with you. So in week 1, it's $10 times the 1 week, but there was no money to start with, so she has saved $10. Go ahead, take the next minute or so to fill in the rest of this table. Hit pause on the video so you can get that done. So our table should look like this. We see that after T number of weeks, she has saved 10T. Now you have 6 ordered pairs that you can go ahead and plot on the graph below. So scroll down to the graph below. I've already labeled your X and your Y axis for you. Go ahead and scale your X and your Y and plot your points. Hit pause on the video as you do that. Okay, so depending on how you scaled your graph, it should look something along these lines. 1 week, $10, 2 weeks, $20, and so on. So we look back up at number 1. They ask us, what is the rate of change, and what does it mean in the context of this situation? I want to point something out here. If I did this in my table, I get plus 10 each time here, and plus 1 each time here, which means my rate of change is 10 over 1, or $10 per week, which means she has saved $10 each week. But if we scroll back down and look at the graph, here's where you have to be really careful when you find rate of change from a graph. Because if we looked from point to point, you might make the mistake of saying you're only going up 1 here and up 1 here for a rate of change of 1 over 1. That's where your scale comes into play. I scaled mine every 10. So when I go up, I'm going from 10 to 20. That is going up 10. You have to look at your scale in order to find your rate of change in this case. That can be tricky, so be really careful when you're finding rate of change from a graph that you identify what the scale on your y-axis and your x-axis are. Sometimes it's not going to be 1. And if it's not 1, you have to do some subtraction or some addition and figure out what is the actual jump from here to here. In this case, you didn't jump 1. It was 1 spot on the graph, but that represented a jump of 10. So be careful when you're finding rate of change from a graph. Number 2 says, what is the starting point, and what does it mean in the context of this situation? Yesterday, we talked about starting point being where x was 0 in your table. But if you look at this table, I don't see 0 for x anywhere. You can, however, go back in time. All of these jumps were a jump of 1. So if I had jumped 1 here, I can jump 1 backwards to get to 0. All of these were jumps of 10. Had I jumped from here to here, it would have been a jump of 10 as well. So I can jump 10 backwards, giving me another 0 in this case. That's the 0 that's important. That's what I'm working back towards. So in this case, my starting point is 0, 0. Don't make the mistake of saying it's 110. because 1 is actually 1 week, not 0 weeks. So in this case, it means that Shauna started with no money. And you could see that from your graph as well, because if this were a line, it would go all the way back through 0, 0. Your starting point is always where it crosses your y-axis here. Number 3 says, if Shauna were to start earning $15 a week, how would the function rule change? Well, our original function rule is y equals 10t. But now, that 10 would go away, and it would be y equals 15t. We're multiplying by 15 instead of 10. So my new graph at 0 weeks would still be 0. She still hasn't earned anything. But after 1 week, she's earned 15. After 2 weeks, it's 30. After 3 weeks, it's 45. After 4 weeks, it's 60. And after 5 weeks, it's 75. I'm going to go ahead and plot those new points in red. 0, 0, that's the one that they would share. I'll erase the jumps I was looking at. At 115, we'd go over 1 and up to 15. 2 is at 30. 3 is at 45. 4 is at 60. And 5 is at 75. So we can see this new line would actually be steeper because your rate of change is bigger. And that's kind of what we would see with the differences. The line is steeper when the rate of change is bigger. Rate of change is the same thing as slope. Okay. Now, we're going to go ahead and end this video. The next page of your notes will be on your next video.